The Sign of the Seahorse, a tale of greed and high adventure by Graeme Base. Prelude. The disappearance of the seahorses, in which a spreading poison comes to the old reef and all the seahorses mysteriously vanish. Above the ragged reefs they soared, exquisite and serene. Through slanting shafts of sunlight, tiny jewels of blue and green, performing little pirouettes, then sailing side by side, an everlasting ballet danced upon the turning tide. Beneath a sweeping canopy of undulating hue, from wells of limpid turquoise to the deepest midnight blue, the seahorse ballet rose and fell, a silent symphony played out against the backdrop of a vast and fragile sea. Then came the day the sea went dark, the reef began to change. The coral gardens lost their glow, the seaweed tasted strange. The shifting ocean currents brought a slowly spreading blight, and every single seahorse simply vanished overnight. Yikes. Act 1, Scene 1, the Seahorse Cafe. Ooh, I might have to sit down for this. Here. Okay. Can you? Maybe the light's a little too much. Oh, back to the story. Act 1, Scene 1, the Seahorse Cafe. In which our heroine, Pearl, falls in love with Corporal Burt, and the evil grouper pays an unwelcome visit to the Seahorse Cafe. The Seahorse Cafe was the place where the fine young fish would meet to spend the evening dancing on the latest Reef Town beat. The rock was hard, the drinks were soft, the chairs were in between. In short, the Seahorse was the place in which one should be seen. The cafe sat upon a knoll above the ebb and flow, unblemished by the poison that was taking hold below. The band was hot, the place was cool, the atmosphere just right, and all the fish would bop and hop and boogie through the night. The owner of the cafe was a fine upstanding trout who had a lovely daughter and a son who seemed a lout. She waitressed at the cafe and was cheerful, quick and bright. But he had joined the catfish gang and stayed out late at night. Despite the shock of spiky hair and earrings in his snout, young Phineas was really just a normal teenage trout. The catfish gang looked rough and mean, no manners, no respect, but deep inside they meant no harm and dressed up for effect. The daughter, we shall call her Pearl, would often stop and flirt with all the local soldier crabs until she noticed Bert. He looked the part, a clipped mustache, two eyes, 8 boots, one glove, and Pearl, who couldn't help herself, she fell hopelessly in love. Next page. Boy, these are just amazing. Gosh, I'm sorry. I wish you could make these out better. Okay. That fateful night when Pearl and Bert first fell for one another, and she gazed deep into his eyes, first one stalk, then the other. There came a crash, somebody screamed, and in the doorway stood the grouper and his henchman. It was clear they meant no good. The grouper was an ugly fish with wicked piggy eyes, possessed of bloated appetites, and witnessed by his size. His pinstripe suit was tailor-made, complete with marching tie, exactly the well-dressed crook was wearing that July. A strange-looking swordfish stood a little to his right, the kind of thug you wouldn't want to come across at night. His sidekicks were a pair of sharks with dubious IQs, who dressed in stove-top trousers and wore pointy two-tone shoes. The grouper owned the place next door, a sleazy, rundown bar where low-life slugs and wintle traps made bootleg caviar. He'd bought a lot of property in last October's crash and ran the sort of businesses where clients paid in cash. The grouper said, "You punk, stay key. This warning is for you. Stay out of this here cafe or your swimming days are through. I own the only bar in town that's gonna jump and jive. You come back here again and you ain't gonna stay alive." His bodyguards slicked back their hair and circled round the crowd as if to dare the customers to voice their thoughts aloud. Then, roughing up a sea snail who was less than half their height, the sharks rejoined their master and stepped out into the night. These illustrations are incredible. Graeme Base is a master. They really are wonderful. This is scene 2, down at the wreck, in which the catfish gang come face to face with the groupers, sharks. The soldier crabs arrive in the nick of time, and Corporal Bert pins a note to his true love, Pearl. The catfish gang were hanging out down by the local wreck, demolishing the rigging and the starboard upper deck, when Stan and Ted, the grouper sharks, perchance to happen by, the catfish leapt down from the ship and faced them eye to eye. Young Phineas was furious. He swung right up to Ted. "You sharks are nothing more than stupid villains," Finney said. "You think that you're big heroes roughing up defenseless snails. Well, let's see how you look with catfish claws marks down your tails. The sharks revealed their wicked teeth and grinned a wicked grin. It looked as though the fearsome fight was shortly to begin. But suddenly there came the sound of fast approaching feet. A company of soldier crabs came marching down the street. They rounded up the catfish and informed them of their rights, while Stan and Ted moved quietly away from all the lights. The area was cordoned off. All trouble spots were manned. The soldier crab commander had the crisis well in hand. You catfish are a rotten lot, the crab commander said, his beady eyes surveying them from well above his head. I ought to have your whiskers. We can do without your kind. Now clear off every one of you before I change my mind. With calculated slowness and impertinent remarks, the catfish gang retreated, looking around them for the sharks. But Stan and Ted had disappeared the moment things got hot. For villains they most surely were, but stupid they were not. This is really amazing. I mean, we've got sharks and kooky catfishes, and here's the soldier crabs. No, this is such an amazing book. Oh, here. It's Corporal Burt. Amazing. Okay, back to the story. When all the members of the gang had disappeared from view, the colonel said, "Attention, men, a message has come through. A creeping plague is killing off the coral gray and dead. Our orders are to find the source and whence this poison spread." The army was to leave at once. All crabs were on alert, and at the news, a little gang escaped from Corporal Burt. For in his heart a crack appeared, a soulful lovesick pain, to think that he might never see his true love Pearl again. The colonel gave an order, and the soldiers wheeled about. But as they left, Bert lagged behind, his mind a sea of doubt. He longed to see his darling Pearl before he went away, and tell her all those tender things that parting lovers say. Just then he heard a rustle in some bushes up ahead, and from a clump of seaweed poked a spiky mane that said, "Hey, Bert, it's Finny, come over here. I'm hiding in the weed." "Dear Phineas," cried Corporal Burt, "you're just the fish I need. The soldier crabs are leaving in an hour. We must depart. But will you take a note for me to ease my aching heart? Tell Pearl that I shall miss her every hour of every day." So Finny promised Bert he'd take the note without delay. The other catfish reappeared as Bert marched out of view and held a general meeting as to what the gang should do. "Those sharks are getting way too big. Let's cut them down to size." And so they formed a plan to catch their rivals by surprise. Ooh, man. This is scene 3, back at the Seahorse Cafe. Uh-oh. Looks like the grouper's making his move. in which the unscrupulous grouper acquires the Seahorse Cafe, and Pearl gives Finney a message before embarking on a long journey into the unknown. Back at the Seahorse Cafe, there was tension in the air. The swordfish fins akimbo stood behind the grouper's chair. The grouper watched Pearl's father through a pall of acrid smoke, then leaned across the table, downed some caviar, and spoke. I am a very patient fish, a fact of which I'm proud, along with every quality which I have endowed. But patience, as a virtue, has its limits, you'll agree. I want this contract settled by the time I count to 3. He stood and thrust a pin toward his victim's tired fin. Pearl's father sighed and signed. The poor old trout had given in. And so the grouper came to the legal license of Reef Town's Seahorse Cafe for $1.93. The grouper turned toward him as he headed for the door. I trust you are aware of certain costs you'll have to meet. The taxes and the legal fees, expenses underlined. You'll find them in the fine print of the contract you just signed. The sound of wicked laughter. Oops. Got a phone call. Have to sign off for now. Anna, how you doing? I'm good, thanks. You can if you want. Yeah, he has a general practice.